What's up, y'all? This Jose with Oakland Latinos United. Who's up on here? Tapping in for live with J number 95. Everybody leave. Where's everybody at? Let's see before I get it started. Let's let more people come in. What's up, Gabriel Torres? Where's everybody else at? Nobody on right now? Everybody got off? Everybody's scared to get on my live? Puro base! Puro base, ay hombre! No, I'm playing. Culo base. What's up, Fambo? East 7th in the house. So what's going on, man? I'm out here chilling. Today I want to do something a little bit different than I normally do. Today's topic is 80s nostalgia. I'm going to do something fun today, something different. I don't know if you guys grew up in the 80s, but the other day I was chilling at the house and I was binge watching hella 80s cartoons on cable and on demand, and it made me nostalgic for the 80s. I hadn't thought about really the 80s in a long time. And I wanted to talk about like TV shows back then, cartoons back then, the area where I grew up, how it was back then, and Oakland back then too. Because I remember in the 80s, that whole decade I spent it in Oakland. You know what I mean? In the 90s, it was more mixed, but in the 80s, I was in Oakland the whole time. I lived in the town. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, I just remember I was little then, but I remember a lot of shit about that era, a lot of stuff about that time. And if you grew up in that era, you know what I mean, you might remember some of the things I talked about. Maybe next time, or maybe not next time, maybe a week down after the next one, maybe I'll do one about the 90s. But I wanted to do one about the 80s when I was a little kid. Just like I said, I got nostalgic about the 80s and just wanted to do something different. You know what I mean? Talk about something different. I always talk about crime or politics or other stuff. I want to have fun today. You know what I mean? And just talk about the past. The stuff I remember, stuff I hadn't thought about in a long time. You know what I mean? And maybe some of you might remember. So let me know. Are you guys 70s babies or 80s babies? I'm a 70s baby, born in 1977. So basically, I grew up as a child in the 80s and as an early teenager in the late 80s. You know what I mean? And it was a cool time. Yeah, Heathcliff. That was one of the cartoons I was watching the other day. But I just remember like I was a kid. Yeah, those were rough times, but they seemed like innocent, kind of like innocent, simpler times. But maybe they just maybe it just seemed that way. But yeah, I was born in '77 as well, Fambo, '79, shortcuts. So we were all born around roughly around the same era, 1986. So you have really not a lot of memories of the '80s, probably more '90s. I have memories of the '90s too, though. But but yeah, I was a kid in the '80s. By the '90s, I was a teenager. I was older, and I do remember the '90s, obviously. But I remember the things that were popular in the '80s when I was a kid. It was a different time for sure. It was a different time to be alive. You know what I mean? There was a lot of differences back then, and people's attitudes and everything was just different at that time. You could say it was when men were men and women were women. I know I'm going to get canceled for that one, but in a way, that is true. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was a different time. You know what I mean? And I got to experience it. Heathcliff was a bully. We'll talk about that. I was watching Heathcliff. I'm telling you, bro, on my on-demand thing cable, they had the Transformers. I watched a couple of Transformers episodes. I watched Heathcliff. I watched Mask. I don't know if you guys remember Mask. And they had Inspector Gadget, but I didn't get to watch it. I did see it. Um, but yeah, man, I personally, I don't know about you guys, but at least as a kid, man, I think the best cartoons were from the '80s for me because we had some dope ass cartoons. I remember at that time, cartoons were very robot inspired. Like robots were the thing back then. because you had the Transformers, you had Robotech, you had Voltron, you had the GoBots, um, and there were several others that were based off robots. So the there was a lot of big thing about robots, especially transforming robots. You know what I mean? It was a big thing at that time. You had He-Man as well. What else you had? You had Masters of the Universe He-Man. You had Thundercats. What else did I remember? So many. Heathcliff, I mentioned Garfield as well. You know, and they still used to play the old cartoons then. Like they used to play like the Looney Tunes and Popeye and like cartoons that were hella old by that time. You know what I mean? Uh, we got Transformers nowadays. Yeah, man. Well, back then we had robot Transformers. You know, I didn't realize till recently that the song of the Transformers when it says robots in the skies. I didn't realize it was saying disguise. I thought when I was a kid, I thought it says robot in the sky. That's what I used to think. It wasn't until I was an adult that I realized it said it robots in disguise. You know what I mean? But yeah, the Smurfs, Smurfette. Um, uh, what other ones? There was Smurfs. There was obviously the girl ones like Rainbow Bright and Strawberry Shortcake, the Care Bears. I remember the Pound Puppies. I remember that one. The real Ghostbusters. Who remembers the Ghostbusters? Um, and which one was the other one? There was a lot of them, bro. um, I remember Underdog, Scooby Doo, Mighty Mouse. Oh, who remembers Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling? If you remember Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, that's an old school. Yep, the Jacksons, the Flintstones. The Flintstones were already old, but they used to play the Flintstones back then. The Jacksons too. Yeah, they used to play Tom and Jerry sometimes. For sure. Woody Woodpecker too. I remember him. Fraggle Rock and the Muppet Show. Remember that? The Muppet Babies. Remember the Muppet Babies? I remember back then too, like the regular channels like KBHK 44, KTVU 2, Coffee 20. What's up, Mike Wallace? They used to play the cartoons um, right after school, like around 3 to about 5. They would play cartoons. You know what I mean? Um, and yeah, it was like the after school thing. When you got home from school, you watch cartoons and uh, you do some homework, but or go outside and play with your friends. You know what I mean? But yeah, I remember like yeah, channel 2, channel 44, channel 20. What other ones? And I remember on Saturdays they used to play Saturday morning cartoons like on channel 7, on channel 5, on channel 4, I think too. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, there used to be a lot of dope shows. And then remember WWF used to always be on at night. Yeah, Merry Melodies, Looney Tunes. Remember when they used to play WWF back then? When I was a kid, I'm from the era of Hulk Hogan, Randy Macho Man Randy Savage, the Junkyard Dog. You know what I mean? Andre the Giant, Tito Santana. I remember all that. The main event and and nah, this is before the Ultimate Warrior. I remember Mr. Fuji, uh, Jake the Snake Roberts, like the old school. Yeah, Hong Kong Fooey. I do remember that. Fat Albert, yep. I'm like Fat Albert now. Yeah, I remember Fat Albert. Michael Jordan and Bro Jackson. I don't remember that one. I do remember the Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, though, the WWF cartoon. But yeah, man, I remember all that stuff. Remember Channel 2, KTVU, when they used to play the little shorts with the dog. What were they called? With the dog and the horse. Humphrey and what was the other one's name? They were the ones that used to be like, glue, I need some glue. You remember what I'm talking about? They used to do those shorts, bits and pieces they were called. Uh, who was it? Humphrey and I can't remember. Mark McCormick, I think, was the dude that used to do that one. They were like these little puppets, and they would always have like a, they'd always like have some kind of lesson. You know what I mean? Yeah, he had a hat and he would wear a Raiders shirt. The little dog would. Charlie and Humphrey, I think it was called. Charlie and Humphrey, if I remember right. Fat Albert episode one inmate wanted to bust you. I don't remember that one. Yeah, when I was watching Heathcliff, I didn't realize Heathcliff was a bully, man. Heathcliff used to beat up everybody in his neighborhood, always terrorize. That's why the song used to say terrorize the neighborhood. Yeah, a bulldog and a horse, yep. Bits and pieces. I remember that. They showed that for years in the romper room. But yeah, Heathcliff was a bully, bro. That fool used to beat up dogs, beat up other cats, and then there was the other one. Uh, there was a second segment. Remember they were called the Cadillac Cats with Riff Raff. You know what I mean? Uh, and Yeah, I remember that. I wonder if they would make a cartoon like that today. Yeah, the homeless. Yeah, yeah, yeah. On Sesame Street. Yeah, I remember Sesame Street too, and Mister Rogers. Wonder if they would make a cartoon like Heathcliff today. A cat bullying and terrorizing the whole neighborhood, jacking people and stuff. I was like, damn, that fool was pretty bad. But yeah, man. Yeah, but they used to have hella cartoons back in those days, man. That's one thing I do remember was pretty dope. We always had cartoons and toys. Sometimes you'd get the toys bought, but sometimes you'd have to get the 5 finger discount. That guy, which guy? Fritz, the cat adult cartoon. I don't remember that one. Remember when the Transformers the movie came out, 1986? I remember that one. That movie was crazy. Where Optimus Prime died. All the kids were disappointed on that one. Heathcliff was a gangster. He was female cat. Oh yeah, I think her name was Sonia. And then remember Riff Raff? They lived in the junkyard. That shit was dope, bro. I miss all that, man. Uh, I don't want to Abraham. I don't want to. Oh yeah, Mungo. I don't want to incriminate myself, but I grew up poor. Put it like that, and I grew up in the hood. So, unfortunately, there were some times where I had to do what I had to do. You know. But yeah, man, Mungo. There were the three cats. There were Mungo, Hector, and Wordsworth. I think was the other one. Yeah, Riff Raff was a pimp. Was Fat Albert black exploitation? Not really. I wouldn't call it that. Maybe if it was glorifying like pimps and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't think it was. It was definitely probably the first time they had like a positive black cartoon for sure. You know what I mean? But yeah, I remember Fat Albert. I don't remember it well, but I did watch it. I do remember watching it. Yeah, that was Bill Cosby's cartoon. Yeah, they had a Cadillac. Yeah, an old Cadillac. They would transform, remember, into a boat and into I think, an RV or something like that. Yeah, man. So I remember the GoBots. Those were like the other wannabe Transformers. Remember them? Yep, the Battle of the Bay, 1989. The earthquake hit. Shit, I was 12 years old when that happened. I've told that story many times on this channel. That was a crazy day. I was a little kid, but I remember everything that day, bro. Uncle were in prison. Were they? I don't remember that. I don't remember it that well. A drop top. Yeah, yeah, man. Hella cool memories, bro. And I'm like I said, I was in Oakland, so I remember a lot of places that were around back then. The Eastmont Mall. You know, I remember some of the stores like Woolworths, Mervyn's, J.C. Penney's used to be in the Eastmont Mall. I remember the Chinese food spot. I think it was called Ho's Chinese Food. I think that's what it was called. It was right at the end of the of the food court. I remember we used to bomb there. They used to sell some bomb ass Chinese food. And they used to have a place that used to sell popcorn next to it. I remember. Uh, and Yeah, I remember that was a spot, bro. I think it was called Ho's Shortcuts, if I remember right. It was good. I remember the Chinese food there was hella bomb, especially the little fried chicken things they would give you. The T-shirt shop, Cops. I think so. It was in the East Mall, right? I remember Mr. Z's. I remember T. Wazzy's. I remember the Orange Julius. I remember the toy store. It was called King Norman's Toy Store. I remember that toy store. I remember there was a Safeway. A lot of people don't remember the Safeway. There was a Safeway in Eastmont Mall, and then later it became IGA. Now it's called Gonzales. You know what I mean? There was a Pay and Save too, and I want to say there was a Thrifties. Am I wrong? Was there Thrifties at Eastmont Mall? Did they have a salt and pepper fish? I don't remember, but they did have a fish and chips place in the Eastmont Mall back then. From Hangenberger, didn't know 'em. Yeah, it was Safeway, then it was IGA, and then it became Gonzales later on in life. Yeah, man. I was in the Four Star Theater. Who remembers the Four Star Theater in the Eastmont Mall? I seen hella movies there when I was a kid. Yeah, Soul Beat with the cheap ass videos. That's where they used to play all the music, the Bay Area music videos on Soul Beat. But they had all the hoopty commercials, the little low budget commercials. Yeah, Foot Locker. Yeah, man, those were cool times, man. I remember also, I'll take it to Alameda because I spent a lot of time in Alameda. I remember uh, the old school, the old school South Shore Mall. Yeah, Mike Wallace. There was an Orange Julius. You don't remember it? It used to be right in the middle of the mall. What was the first Bay Area song you heard in the '80s? I want to say it was "Female Funk" by Too Short. I was hella little, bro. That was the first time I ever heard an Oakland rapper. I want to say it was Too Short. But yeah, man, I was gonna go. We'll talk about music too. I was gonna talk about the South Shore Mall. Remember, there used to be Woolworths. There used to be J.C. Penney's. I think where Coles is at now, that used to be a J.C. Penney's. Or no, that used to be Mervyn's. I think that was Mervyn's, and I think that J.C. Penney's was down more. You know what I mean? They had a Safeway. They had a Lucky's too when I was a kid. If you guys remember that, I think later it was Albertsons. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, they did have a KB toy store, and then Shortcuts reminded me they used to have a little like store owned by some Indians, and they used to sell like cholo clothing there. I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember Miller's Outpost. Later on, that became Anchor Blue. Remember? They didn't have Miller's Outpost in where did they have a Miller's Outpost? Did they have one in Eastmont? I don't remember one in Eastmont Mall. Uh, where did they? I remember Miller's Outpost, but for some weird reason, I don't remember where it was at, bro. But I remember it for sure. I know they had one in Bayfair back in the days. I think Southland had one, and Hilltop had one too. Oh yeah, and there used to be a movie theater in in at the South Shore Mall. Who remembers the movie theater at South Shore? There used to be a South Shore Mall movie theater. Those of you who remember it, it was in the back, kind of by the McDonald's. You know what I mean? And then there used to be the old flea market off of Webster, and there was a drive-in there, the Island Drive-in. I remember that spot. That was that flea market was more cracking than the Coliseum one. I think the Coliseum one was barely starting. The Coliseum used to be the drive-in, if you guys remember that. The Coliseum drive-in, and then down the street was the Dome Theater, the Century. Wasn't it called Century? I always forget the name of that spot, but it was the one with the dome off of Hangenberger. I went there a few times. I used to love going to the Grand Lake though. That was always my favorite theater in Oakland because they played new movies, but it was an old school ass theater, bro. It was hella dope. Yeah, I seen B Street at South Shore. I seen a lot of movies at South Shore, bro. I remember seeing Karate Kid at South Shore, and I think I seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit at South Shore. Motorcycle Mike, Super Rat, 19 was the first rapper song. Yeah, I didn't know. I never heard him, bro. Club B&B. The first rapper I personally heard that was from Oakland was, like I said, Too Short with Female Funk. That's the first time I ever heard of an Oakland rapper. I'm sure there was others, but that was the first time I heard of one. Yeah, I seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then if there was also the Mexican theater, if you guys remember that, it used to be in by Funktown on 7th and East 12th. They'd Cine Plaza. That was a popular ass theater. They used to play English movies there. I remember I went to see that movie Standing Delivered there, the Plaza Theater. If you guys remember, if you guys ever heard of it, it used to be right there on 7th and on 7th Ave and East 12 on the corner right there. It was there for hella years. It was there till about the mid 90s. But yeah, man. And let's talk about the music back then. The music back then, there was hella music back in those days. You know what I mean? I remember like, you know, like Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do with It. I remember that playing everywhere. I remember the Pointer Sisters, you know what I mean, who are from Oakland. I remember their music playing in a lot of places. I remember Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson were popular. Prince, you know what I mean? I remember I wasn't big on the freestyle music, Chris. I don't know why. I don't know if you guys liked it, but I wasn't big on it. You know what I mean? It was all right. Yeah, I remember Sheena Easton, and I remember Irene Cara, and who else? Irene Cara was fine. She was Puerto Rican, I think. um, I remember Sheila E., who was from the town. I remember Peter Escobedo, who was from the town. I remember Rumors, that song. Look at all these rumors surrounding me every day. You know what I mean? I remember when Jam On It came on. And you gotta remember, bro, when I was a kid, that was when real hip hop was out. When the original rap, before it became gangster rap, you know, the original stuff like Run DMC and the Fat Boys and Eric B and Rakim and Rob Bass and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and all that old school stuff, Kid and Play, you know what I mean? All that stuff. You know, I remember all that old school stuff, bro. Early Ice T and um African Bambaataa, you know, even though he went all bad, but I remember him too. Ike and Tina Turner got two weeks quick by the big day. Heavy D and the Boys. I remember Tony Tone, who were from Oakland. I think Club Nouveau. Where were they from? Were they from Oakland or Sacramento? I remember the California Raisins. I remember that fool. They used to play like old songs. I remember Marvin. I remember when Marvin Gaye died, bro. I was a little kid when he died. Marvin Gaye. I remember hearing about it when he made the song. What was the song that was popular? He made it in the '80s. Right before he died, he made a popular song. I can't remember the name of it right now. Michael Jackson got bit. Hey, bro, I always tell people, and people don't believe me. I met the Fat Boys in the parking lot of that shopping center, Sexual Heal. Okay, yeah, in the shopping center in Alameda on Blanding. You know where Alpha Beta and Payless drugstore used to be. You know what I mean? I met them there. I'm telling you, bro, that was them. Back in the day, I was a little kid, bro. It was at night. I told you that story, Shortcuts. I think I've told that story here before, but that was them, fool. I just seen them briefly, and I didn't say nothing to them. I just said, "Oh, that's a fat boy." I looked at them, and they said, like, "What's up?" to me, like they seen that I recognized them, and I was like, "Oh shit, that was the Fat Boys." Tour love. But yeah, no, that was them, bro. That was them, bro. Because it was two dudes. One dude was hella big, and it was a light skinned dude, a Puerto Rican dude, Prince Marky D. You know what I mean? It had to have been them, bro. But yeah, that was a long that was I was a little kid. That had to have been like 86 or 87, bro. You know what I mean? Janet Jackson too was popular back then. Remember her? Michael Jackson was the shit back then, bro. Whether you like him or not, you gotta admit that fool, he was the shit back then, bro. His music was everywhere in the '80s, bro. Like he was like the man back then, bro. Like I just remember Michael Jackson's music was everywhere. Beat It, Bad, Driller, uh, PYT, all them songs. You feel me? All that stuff was hella popular back then. You know, I used to hear that stuff everywhere. Smooth Criminal. Um, you know what I mean? Yeah, Michael Jackson was the shit in the '90s, bro. In the '80s, I mean. Gotta be starting something. You got to be starting something. It wasn't Elaine Brown went down at the old Oakland Auditorium. Probably did. Billie Jean is not my lover. Man, I remember all that, bro. You're a Weird Al Yankovic. What's up, Sam boy? We're talking '80s nostalgia today. So I don't know if you grew up in the '80s as a kid. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then I remember all the restaurants back then, like at Migriense. I remember the original Migriense. Oh yeah, Prince. Prince was dope. Uh, but Michael Jackson was probably even more popular than Prince back then, bro. Let's be real. In the '80s, Michael Jackson was everywhere, bro. But but yeah, I remember the restaurants like Migriense when it first came out. The taco truck, it was bomb. I remember the Mexicano Market. I remember the quarter pound giant burger. I remember Mrs. Brown's on 31st and East 14th. It was a ham and eggs place. I remember Zamorano, the taco truck, and the restaurant. I remember me La Borriqueña, Mi Rancho by Mexicali Rose over there on 7th Street. You feel me? In the '80s. Yeah, Michael Jackson was like the man in the '80s. I remember Flink's Barbecue. I remember what else was big back then? A lot of La Fortuna and Fruitvale. You know what I mean? Hella spots back then. I mean, Rancho was the shit. The one on 7th Street. Miramontes, yep. And there was across the street. A lot of people don't remember. There was another place across the street from Miramontes called Lily's. It was there for a lot of years. You know what I mean? Tam's Chinese restaurant right there on 35th and East 14th. I remember the owner used to speak Spanish, and then I remember there was a little movie theater for kids on Farnham and Fruitvale called the Fruitvale Playhouse. Who remembers that spot where they used to show like little kids movies on the weekends? Anybody ever go to that spot? I think I've talked about that little theater here before. I remember it was owned by some fat white dude, but he used to show like hella kids movies. Oh yeah, that good. But I remember before Mexico restaurant on 35th and Foothill. 35th and Foothill. I think I know what restaurant you're talking about. But Taqueria San Jose, I'm trying to remember what was there before, bro. It was something else. I remember. I want to say it was a rotisserie chicken place. Yeah, I remember Tio Toño's, and then there was Uh, the original Pollo Loco that opened like in the late '80s. It was where the check cashing place is, kind of by Fruitvale on East 14th, close to Fruitvale, next to the Bank of America. And then Doggy Diner, if you're old enough to remember Doggy Diner, I remember Doggy Diner was the shit, bro, back then. Taqueria Durango. Oh, yeah, Taqueria Durango was dope, but that was more in the 90s, I think. I don't think it was there in the 80s. I can't remember. Oh, Diaz has been there forever. And then that place, La Ciudad de Mexico, has been there forever, too, on East 14th. Um, yeah, there was hella spots back then, bro. The ghost ship. I remember that, too. But yeah, man, hella cool memories back then, man. And let's talk about the hoods. Like, I remember, at least from my brothers, because I was a kid then, I wasn't in the hoods like that, but I remember hearing my brothers' conversations. I remember hearing about 36, 38, locals, Jingletown, Fruitvale Gangsters, Quince. I remember my brother used to tell me Quince used to be at San Antonio Park. I remember hearing about the old school 96 locals, the 60s. I've heard hella stories about them. Uh, 46 locals, I remember hearing about them. Uh, All Brothers Together, ABT. Um, Scursville, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Scursville. That was an old uh, black clique in the 30s. Wino Park too, yeah. And obviously, I remember hearing about the 6 9 Bill and the 41st Cycles, yep. I remember hearing about Acorns. I remember hearing about uh besides Scursville, what else? The Dove, the 20s. Back then they used to call it the Twomps or Rolling 20s. I remember hearing about obviously I heard about Felix Mitchell and all those guys. I remember in my area it wasn't Felix Mitchell, it was a Fat Tone. He was the big factor in my neighborhood back then. You know what I mean? Yeah, I remember all that shit, bro. I remember the cars back then. The yeah, the original Funktown USA. Yeah, that's true. I remember the cars. Like I remember the brothers used to drive like the Cougars, the Falcons, the Mustangs, Trues and Vogues. You know what I mean? I remember the Chicanos were rolling the lowriders, 6'4" Impalas, Monte Carlos. You know what I mean? Cutlass Supremes. I remember, it was muscle cars and lowriders. That's what I remember when I was a kid. You know what I mean? I remember when fools used to race on East 12. My brother used to tell me about that. And I remember when fools used to started burning donuts too. The first time I used to see donuts, them fools spitting donuts back then. I was a little kid, but I remember it like fools would spin donuts in like muscle cars. You know what I mean? That was back in the days. Back in the days, brother. And the clothes everyone used to wear, obviously, Troop was popular, Lottos were popular, 501s were popular, Ben Davis were popular back then. Some fools wore Dickies too. You know what I mean? Pendletons and fucking sweatsuits. That was a thing back then, bro. Windbreakers. I remember the old school Cholo windbreakers were popular. Derby jackets. You feel me? Um, yeah, I remember all that stuff. Winos. Fools used to wear winos back then. I still remember some fools wearing Stacy Adams too. Some cats still used to wear them. The shiny shoes. Oh, corduroys too were popular back then. Oh, and acid wash. I remember when acid wash was really big. When everyone was wearing acid wash jeans and stone wash. I'm sure some of you might remember that old school style. Falcon Boys Cadillac Club, yeah. Stepside Club. Yeah, acid wash everyone was wearing that back then, bro. That was like the thing. Oh, the kangaroo shoes. I think they were called Ruse. don't think people wore peacoats in the 80s, did they? I don't remember peacoats. I remember it's only jackets and like derbies and stuff like that. Pumps, I never had those. How big was a corduroy house shoes? What's up, Martin? We're talking about 80s memories. You should tap in some memories down there. We're talking about everything 80s. 80s nostalgia today. Yeah, the kangaroo shoes. Those were the Roos. I remember those. I never had a pair of those, but I do remember them. I don't remember the corduroy shoes as much in the 80s, bro. I remember more the vinyls were more popular. Yep, kegs and Vans. Chuck Taylors, too. Some fools wore Chuck Taylors, I remember. PKs, British Knights, yep. I remember those. And back then, that's when a lot of Bay Area rappers were coming out. You know what I mean? MC Hammer, Too Short. Uh, who else was popular back then? There was a lot of rappers. And Dangerous Game, Pooh Man, MC Pooh, Digital Underground came out around that time. This was more like the late '80s, but I remember it. Late '80s, early '90s. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't remember Peacoats back in the day, to be honest with you, bro. I remember those more like in the late '90s, early 2000s. All my '80s revolve around going to Kmart, getting athletic shoes, dreaming of one day rocking Pro Wings. Yeah, I remember having some. Oh yeah, 415. I remember wearing Kmart shoes. We used to go to the Kmart in San Leandro. Remember that one, Martin? The Pro Wings at Payless Shoe Stores. Man, them freaking shoes will fall apart hella quick. You feel me? They wouldn't even last you a month. Mac Dre, Mac Dre came out like '89, I think, if I remember right. Copeland's, yep, I remember Copeland's. I bought a couple shoes there when I was a kid. Well, my mom did, or my parents did. Yeah, Kmart. I remember that. Kmart. That's another thing. That was the store before Walmart. It was Kmart. Yeah, Kmart. Yeah, and the weekend. That was always the thing. The blue light special. Oh, the MB Mall. Are you talking about the MB Mall? That was on MacArthur Broadway Mall. I don't remember Subway sandwiches. I remember the ICs. I remember they used to sell like hot dogs, and they would sell these little pizza things. They were hella good. I think they were called like pizza pockets or something like that. They were hella good at Kmart. He used to sell some shoes at Copeland's. I used to get a lot of deals at Copeland's. I remember they would have like sales a lot when I was a kid. Yeah, GI Joes. Yeah, I remember the GI Joe toy, Transformer toys. Yeah, it always did smell like popcorn, and they'd always be like, "Attention, Kmart shoppers! We have a blue light special in aisle 20." And they'd always have the layaway area, and there was always a long line. Yeah, National Dollars. I remember that store, the one on East 14th in the 30s. My mom used to go there all the time. I remember we were hella poor, and she couldn't afford really to buy me any cool pants. So we were at National Dollars. It was like 88, 89. And I told my mom, just buy me a pair of Dickies. I'll just wear those. Hey, Bonanza's closed, bro. I was driving by there the other day, and it closed. It's not there no more, bro. Oh yeah, I remember. Oh yeah, I forgot about Montgomery Wards. Yeah, the big Montgomery Wards on 29th and East 14th. I got to check it out a few times, but I remember I was little then, so it didn't last too long. When did Montgomery Wards close? It was like 86, 87, 88, somewhere around there, right? If I remember right. the quarter-pound giant burger. The pro wings. And then I remember my mom would buy me Rustler jeans from Kmart. What's up, Northbound? How you doing, bro? We're talking about the '80s. I don't even know if you were alive yet then. Yeah, Montgomery Ward sat there for a minute, for at least a good 20 years before they tore it down. They should have kept it, man. Oh yeah, Bugle Boys. I remember those. I think my mom got me a pair of those when I was little. Stretch jeans. I don't remember those. Bugle Boys. I remember that. Wasn't there a stupid commercial where a guy was walking and a girl would stop and be like, "Excuse me, sir, are those Bugle Boys?" Oh yeah, Jordache. I remember those. And members only jackets. Yeah, but I think I had a pair of Bugle Boys when I was a little kid. I think my mom bought me a pair. But yeah, man. Yeah, those were the times. Shit, I used to live on East 7th Street, and then we moved around the corner to Chapman Street back then. Lee Dunger. Yeah, Lee's. I forgot about Lee's, bro. Um, a lot of people used to wear Lee's back then. I forgot about that. Not even the dungarees. I remember they used to wear the original Lees. I remember fools wearing those back in the days. They were popular in the '80s. I never had a pair, but I remember some fools wearing them. Family Matter, maybe. I don't know. I didn't like Family Matters as much. Straight leg. Yeah, I remember those, bro. Those used to be popular at one point. Yeah, Alameda Flea Market. Yep, that was the original flea market. Wide leg. But in the '80s, nobody really wore baggy clothes, though. It was more like straight leg or like, I don't want to say skinny, but a lot of people wore like kind of like fitted clothes a lot in the '80s. I remember all the baggy stuff that was later. That was in the '90s. In the '80s, if you look at pictures in the '80s, nobody was really wearing baggy clothes. Only Hammer, yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the movies from the '80s. Sure, I remember all the movies like Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop. You know, Coming to America, and he was 48 Hours. And Eddie Murphy was the shit in the '80s. He had hella movies. They wore those everywhere, Gato. I remember those. I used to see a lot of white folks wearing those, like them short ass shorts. Oh yeah, yeah. You're talking about interstate jeans, trading places. I remember the Ghostbusters. That was popular. Karate Kid. What else? Indiana Jones movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I remember hella movies back then. The Monster Squad, The Goonies, Rambo. Yeah, I remember Rambo. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Yeah, there was hella those like high school movies like Porky's and 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club, and there was a lot of those kind of movies. The Rocky movies, Gremlins. What else? There was a lot of stuff back then, bro. Back to the Future. Yeah, Porky's was funny as hell. The Goonies. Revenge of the Nerds, yeah. Revenge of the Nerds was the shit back then. I seen that movie hella times when I was a kid. I seen the first one and the second one with Booger and Ogre. Oh yeah, Weird Science. Yep, I remember that one. Adventures in Babysitting. Everyone seen that one? That was pretty funny. Um, Colors came out back then. There was a lot of movies, bro, back in those days. Lamar, yeah, I remember Lamar, the black dude, and the Asian guy. I forget the Asian guy's name. But yeah, man, there's a lot of movies back then. Like, but yeah, Stand By. Oh yeah, Stand By Me. Yeah, I forgot about that. Chips, the show. Nah, Blood and Blood. That was the '90s, bro. Poindexter. But no, there was the other. The Asian dude was. I forget what it was called. What about Police Academy? Remember those movies? Those were popular too. Columbo, Highway to Heaven, Columbo, the 227, the Golden Girls. Remember that show called Amen? It was about like a black church. It was pretty funny. Uh, what other ones? The Fall Guy, The Incredible Hulk, um, T.J. Hooker, Born in East LA. Yep, that came out back then. Back to School. Yep. Yeah, Highway to Heaven. Yep, because the character was from Oakland. Remember the dude that always wore the A's hat? Michael Landon, the A Team. Yep, I remember the A Team. Starsky and Hutch, but I think that was more in the '70s. Yeah, I remember What's Happening. That was What's Happening Now. Remember? There was a second part. Magnum PI. Yep, I remember that. And MASH. Remember MASH? Different World. Hey, do you remember when MASH came on? You knew it was too late to be up. It was right after the 10 o'clock news. MASH would come on. That's when your mom would tell you to go to sleep. When you hear that song, dun, 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 dun. Different World. I remember that show. The Cosby Show. I remember that. In Living Color, that was more in the '90s, though. We're talking more '80s today. I'll make another '90s episode where we'll talk about all the '90s. Yeah, Punky Brewster. I remember that. Remember the TV show? Oh yeah, Small Wonder with the girl. Cheers. Hi, my name is Vicky. She used to talk like that. The Outsiders, the movie. I remember that movie. Remember that was a TV show too called Double Dare. Remember that? It was like a game show for kids. Does anybody remember that? The Double Dare show. I remember that show with Mark Summers. I even remember the name of the host. If anybody remembers that show. The Wizard. Was that about that autistic kid? You gonna play video games? Yeah, I seen The Wizard. On Nickelodeon. Yeah, man. A lot of memories back then, bro. Jaws. Yeah, Wheel of Fortune and the other one with Alex Trebek. What was it called? Jeopardy. The Family Feud. Remember that show? The original Family Feud with Richard Dawson. If you guys were old enough to remember. Yep, Rick Price is Right with Bob Barker. Daryl, I remember that movie. It was about a kid who was like a robot or something like that, right? And then there was a movie called came out around the same time. It was called Cloak and Dagger. Does anybody remember that movie? Vanna White, I remember her. Nobody ever seen the movie Cloak and Dagger? That was a popular movie back then. Howard the Duck. I remember Howard the Duck, yep. Howard the Duck was filmed in San Francisco and Oakland. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, Rambo. Commando. Remember Arnold Schwarzenegger? He had that little movies, Commando. He had Raw Deal. He had Conan the Barbarian. He had the Terminator, the first one. He really didn't know how to speak English back then. He'd be like, "Yeah, I am here to fight you. My name is Arnold Schwarzenegger." Hollywood Squares. Oh yeah, the Master of the Universe movie. I do remember that. That was with how was that actor's name? That's he's not Russian. He's like from Germany or something like that. What's his name? Dolph Lundgren. That was his name. Alf. I remember Alf. Spaceballs. I remember that stupid ass movie. They're making fun of Star Wars. Pizza the Hut and Dark Helmet. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but Arnold, if you look at his movies from the 80s, bro, that fool did not know how to speak English well, bro. He could barely understand what he was saying. I am here to look for my daughter. My name is Arnold Schwarzenegger. My name is John Matrix. That was his name in the movie, remember? I'm going on the Barbarian. Pee Wee's Playhouse. Yeah, I remember Pee Wee's Playhouse. Yeah, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, Jason. Yeah, man, it was a cool time, bro. I was a little kid then, but a lot of cool memories. When I think about those times, it makes me feel like a kid again. Halloween, Short Circuit, Johnny Five, remember part two? Did you go behind the curtain at the movie rental place? Everyone's hugging. I remember that. Hey, shortcuts. What was the name of the video place where Papa Murphy's is? I can't remember the name in Alameda. That's where we used to rent a lot of movies. What was that? What was it called? Harry and the Hendersons. The one right there on Blanding. I can't remember the name of it. What was it called? Video Station? What was it called? Or Video Stop? Can't remember the name. I forget what it's called, but we used to rent movies there all the time. This was before Blockbuster. They didn't even have Blockbuster or Hollywood back then. This is like in the 80s, bro. Most of the video places around my area were all mom and pop. I remember we used to go to the Escolandia and we used to go to that video store on Blanding. And then there used to be another video place on Park Street called Night Rider Video. I remember going to rent movies there when I was a little kid. And then I think there was one called Offbeat Video too. Wasn't there? Like on Foothill, I think. Blockbuster and all that came in a little later. Video Maniacs, Video Stop. It was called something like that, like Video Stop. I don't know. It was right there in Alameda, bro. Right by Payless Drugstore. If you guys are old enough to remember Payless Drugstore, that was right there where Alpha Beta used to be. You fight your brother as a kid. Actually, I did many times. I fought some chinos too one time. On Coolidge, yep. Oh yeah, I remember John's video. Spice Channel. The first time we ever got cable was like late 80s, bro, because we couldn't afford it. But we eventually got it. Was like, I want to say 88, 89, and we got cable for the first time. And I remember the original, like Nickelodeon. I remember USA there was a channel called USA. I think there was a channel called the Family Channel. There was American Movie Classics, I think, was one channel. And you had HBO and Cinemax back then. Back at it again. What about the new guy? Oakland, donde la vida no vale nada, donde la ciudad los tiene abandonados. Yeah, the big ass black bus, yep. And then Oakland Cable used to be right there on East 14th, close to High Street. That's where the Oakland Cable building used to be. I remember that. Hell yeah, we had those big ass TVs on Foothill, yeah, near High Street. Did I say High? Yeah, Foothill. Did I say Foothill or no? I don't remember. It was on Foothill, yeah, by High Street, Oakland Cable, Apollo. Yeah, I remember the Bucks. Oh, my bad. No, on East on Foothill. Well, Discolandia. Nobody remembers Discolandia, the original one on Fruitvale. I used to rent movies there too. They used to have all the Spanish movies there. The Discolandia store. If you guys remember that spot, we used to rent a lot of movies there actually. Kelly Bundy. I remember that show. Love and Marriage. What was his name? Al Bundy. That show, man, they wouldn't make shows like that today, bro. That show was hella un PC. Yeah, I'm next to CA Travel. Yeah. Married with Children. Nah, Cartoon Network didn't exist when I was a kid. That came way later. At least around here, I don't remember it. Hell was hella funny. Yeah, I remember that. Always making fun of fat chicks. Yeah, I heard something about that, Julio. The actor, right? What's his name? I forget his name. Yeah, Cartoon Network was more like mid '90s, I think. That's when I first heard of it. '80s, they still used to play cartoons on regular channels. Yeah, Kelly was like a bimbo, basically. Ed O'Neill, yeah, and Peg, his wife, and his son. What was his name? Bud Bundy, and the dog. Yeah, that show, they wouldn't make that show today. That fool used to clown everybody. Wild 107, yeah. I remember before it was Wild 107, that I think in the 80s it was KSOL, I think. And I remember 106 was a was a rock station at first. Yeah, I kind of remember that. Shortcuts, the Tracy Ullman show, and The Simpsons being on there with touchdowns. Oh yeah, Pokai. Yeah, Cam. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that used to be a rock station. It was called Camel. Oh yeah, the show. Yeah, the camel mascot. I remember that. Yep, used to see that camel mascot all over in billboards when I was a little kid. Webster. I forgot about that show. Oh, I know one that you guys will remember. Do you remember the show with Nell Carter? It was called Give Me a Break. Who remembers that show? That was another old school show with Suave. There was Silver Spoons too. That was another show. What else? A few of them. Nobody remembers Give Me a Break. That show was hella popular back in the days with that actress Nell Carter, Rick Chase. I remember that fool. Welcome Back, Cotter. I think that was a '70s show, but I do remember it. I think they were playing reruns of it when I was a little kid. They used to play a lot of old shows on reruns. I remember this show they used to play called Petticoat Junction. Anybody remember that? And they used to have another one called Green Acres. I remember, and I Love Lucy. They played that forever. Yeah, Rick Chase. He was the original troll, bro. That's what he used to troll people and clown on callers on 106. I remember Rick Chase. He was on KMEL, right? If I remember right. And then 1077 had a famous Mexican dude. His name was Marcos Gutierrez. Anybody remember that DJ? A la cama con Porcel. Jack Jersowicz. I know who that is. Who's the boss? Yeah, I remember Who's the Boss. Jack Jersowicz. That fool said Jack Jersowicz. I know exactly who that is. Oh yeah, Nick at Night. They used to play all the old shows like Dennis the Menace and all the old shows. I remember that. They used to play Laurel and Hardy. I remember when I was a little kid. I remember watching those and the Three Stooges. Paul from the Diamond Center. Hell yeah. The Jeffersons. Yeah, I remember that show. How'd the song go? Running to you through the airwaves. Give me credit and every day. What else he say? I'm come and get it. I'm a credit man. Who remembers that dumbass commercial? I'm a credit man, yeah. I'm a credit man. If you from the Bay, you remember Credit Man. Paul from the Diamond Center. Fucking crook. Was he from Vallejo? Oh yeah, Sanford and Son. I remember another show too called. What was the name of that show? It was a black show about a. What was it called? I think it was called That's My Mama. Anybody remember that show? The Credit Man. They played those for years. That commercial. They played it all the way into like the early 2000s. I remember there was a Diamond Center in the Eastmont Mall, bro. On Cetus. There used to be one at the Eastmont Mall. I remember that. Some of you might remember that. Now, I remember a store. I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to remember, but I remember my parents used to go to a store at the Eastmont Mall, and I've asked people if they remember it. And it was a Cadillac store. They used to have catalogs, and you order from the catalog. And the store was called Consumers. It was in the Eastmont Mall. Anybody remember that? Way before cellular phones or anything like that. This is in the '80s, bro. It's called Consumers. I remember my parents used to love going to that store. They used to buy hella shit from there all the time. I think they would always have like good deals. That's why. Nobody remembers Consumers. That was more in the '80s. I don't think it was there anymore in the '90s. Spencer's Gift. The Credit Man. Yeah, that fool, the Diamond Center, they had hella commercials. And remember that one dude, he was a lawyer, a people's lawyer. Remember him? He used to always have those commercials. I met that dude before. His name is he was a political guy. What was his name? He used to do those commercials on at night. Yeah, T Wazzies. I used to buy hella shit from them. Yeah, West Coast Furniture. I remember that in West Oakland on San Pablo. My mom actually bought some stuff from them before. They used to have some paisas working there, and they used to always give my mom deals. Oh, yeah, I remember Shirtique. Yeah, T Wazzies. I used to buy stuff there for sure. Cepeda, I didn't really start going there till the 90s, but I remember the Eastmont Mall was, I mean, not Eastmont, the Hilltop Mall was the shit back in the days. Oh, yeah, I remember the Dog Pound concert. That was famous. They used to do the Mexican concerts too there, the banda ones. I remember they used to be cracking when they used to do all that in the Eastmont Mall. But I do remember that Dog Pound concert. I think there might even be a video about that, bro. Yeah, there was a concert in a riot. There might be some. I'm sure if you look it up, there might be some videos on YouTube about it. That was. I know that happened when I moved back from Sacramento to Oakland. Oh yeah, Spitz Jewelry. I remember that in the 30s. Yeah, I do remember hearing something about Tupac being there. There was also a little Cholo store right next to Spitz back in the days. It was owned by a old Chicano. It was called Latin Fashion. Anybody remember that store? It was right there on East 14th. And then there used to be where it's called Oakland Outlet. That used to be a pharmacy back then. It was called Rexall Pharmacy. Yep, I remember Canada Shoes too. I remember the corner. If you're old enough to remember the corner on 34th and East 14th. Yeah, the Cholo store. You don't remember it? It was right there, right by Spitz's by Spitz. Like I don't remember if it was right next door, but it was right there in that little area. They used to sell like khakis, and they used to sell like T-shirts. They used to say like Chicano and Vaco Loco, and they would embroider stuff, and they would embroider like your derby jackets. It was there for hella years. It was called Latin Fashion. It was open like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Yeah, I think it closed like in the mid 90s or something like that. Can't remember the Volvo dealer. It was also the Melrose Ford. The corner too. There used to be hella stores that used to sell like Cholo clothing back then, like the Bonanzas, the Corner, Melrose, Latin Fashion, Q's Clothing. There was a few of them back in those days. It's crazy how all that is gone now, man. That's the old school days. I was a little kid, but I remember all that stuff. Good times, man. They used to have a lot of videos of the Dog Pound concert on MySpace. Yeah, you could find them on YouTube too. I've seen a couple videos of it. Yeah, no, the town is off the hook now, man. It's sad what I see out there when I'm in Oakland. This fool. You mean Adrian? But hey, I gotta go to the grocery store before they close. I gotta get a couple things, but because tomorrow I'm gonna be a little busy. So skinny jeans. Now it's some JK shit now out there in Oakland. I'm sorry, man. There's a lot of dudes just doing too much. You feel me? But yeah, man. So today was 80s nostalgia night. Maybe somewhere down the line I'll do 90s nostalgia night. I was only doing it because like I was saying, I was binge watching cartoons from the 80s the other day, and it just took me back. You feel me, to the old days. Just wanted to reminisce a little bit. You feel me? Just have a little fun, do something a little different. Hopefully, it brought back a lot of memories. And those of you who weren't alive then, you feel me? Maybe you learned something about the old days. I keep the mob and baggy with the gear. Yeah, man. All right, y'all. Well, everybody be safe, man. East Bay Chef, Fambo, Shortcuts. Cepeda, Sam, the homie from the 90s that was on here earlier. Everybody out there, you guys be safe. Like I said, I got to go to the grocery store before they close. I need to go get a couple things. But, all right, y'all, you guys be safe. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the 80s night. Press the like button. You feel me? Share these videos. Let people know. I'm going to be dropping a video tomorrow about all the stores closing in Oakland. And you guys can check it out. It's already it should already be streaming, but it's gonna be available tomorrow. Oh yeah, fuck, I forgot to mention that the Castle of Malibu. That's right there in by the Coliseum. That's hella old school. I used to go there all the time when I was hella little. Yeah, the Castle. When did Malibu close? That was like mid-90s, huh? When they closed it. But yeah, man, like I said, I gotta get going because I do gotta go real quick. Because tomorrow I'm going to be a little busy. I probably won't be able to stop at the grocery store tomorrow. So I will talk to you guys later. You guys be safe, man. Again, like I said, press the like button, let people know. Watch for that video tomorrow. I'm going to be dropping a video about the situation in Oakland right now. So be sure to share that. Give it a like. Let people know so they can come check it out. I have it as a premiere, so you should be able to see it tomorrow, I think at 4. All right, y'all. Other than that, Oakland, Latinos United, Jose, over and out. Later.